So many of you have asked me to cover Chappell Roan with her own video. Her debut album, The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess, made my top albums of 2023 list, but since then, she's become a true star on the rise. Opening for Olivia Rodrigo's Sold Out Guts tour and performing at Coachella has taken her to a new level of stardom. Her debut has re-peaked on the Billboard 200 and is steadily on the rise. And a new song, Good Luck Babe, has began its ascent on the Hot 100, marking her first true entry and her first possible top 40 hit. In this video, I'm going to briefly go over Chappell's history, which is really fascinating, talk about her debut record and its themes, and discuss why she might actually be the pop savior that we've been waiting for. Amongst other pop saviors, of course. Let's start. Chappell has had a really interesting and rough journey. It has a lot of twists and turns. Born and raised in a trailer park, Kaylee Rose Amstutz was raised in a Christian conservative background that was really restrictive. Like many other artists, she started music very early, even trying out for America's Got Talent when she was 14. She started drawing attention when she started uploading covers to YouTube, much like other artists. Her songwriting journey led her to graduate early and miss out on some formative experiences, which really informs the album that she released. As Kaylee Rose, Roan went on to travel and perform at many showcases. It's really old-fashioned to do it that way. She signed to Atlantic Records in May 2015. That is how long Roan has been in the industry, almost 10 years. Fellow contemporary Sabrina Carpenter, who's also experiencing a massive rise, signed in 2014. If you really think about it, some of our current pop stars have taken 10 years to peak. It is not an overnight process. Chappell Roan would officially adopt the name as a tribute to her grandfather and his favorite song, The Strawberry Roan by Curly Fletcher. 2017 marked the first release that she had under a label. There was an EP, School Nights, which sounds pretty different from what she releases now. One of the singles, I believe, Good Hurt, actually drew some acclaim. She would end up moving to LA in 2018, where she experienced a true breakthrough, being able to live as an openly queer woman, which explains the shift in the music. In 2020, she began to work with Dan Nigro, with her first release with him being Pink Pony Club, which was critically adored, but sadly her singles at the time didn't do well commercially, which led to Atlantic Records, this channel's #1 enemy, mind you, to drop her. To make things even worse, her ex of about 4 years had broken up with her, and she had to take on odd jobs like production assistant work to survive. On top of that, Dan Nigro started to focus more on Olivia Rodrigo's debut Sour, which was a blockbuster hit, but it also meant that Roan had no time for her projects. So Roan would actually end up moving back to the Midwest to work on her music independently. She would eventually return to LA in 2022, getting a publishing deal with Sony and returning to work with Nigro. Her work with Nigro actually helped her land some opening slots on Olivia's Sour tour and for Fletcher later that year. She would end that year with releasing a few singles like Phenomenon, which was an explosive pop track that got some attention, and Casual, a more mid-tempo vulnerable cut. 2023 saw her first proper headlining tour, which critics really did note her as someone to watch. Roan would finally get a major label by signing with Island Records under Dan Nigro's imprint, Amusement Records, and drop a few singles before launching The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess in September of that year and going on yet another tour. For debut artists, touring is the best way to showcase your. She started to become more noticed online. And I'm not just talking about Twitter gays, I'm talking about TikTok users and sounds. But truly, we need to talk about the record. The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess is one of my personal favorite debuts in this current decade. I think it's honestly up there with Ethel Cain's Preacher's Daughter, for different reasons, obviously. This is a very diaristic retelling of Roan's acceptance of her queerness. This record evokes the thrills of records like Born This Way and even Sawayama, sonically speaking at least, and it also really shows off Roan's versatility. I will say that it's a bit garish, brash, and scattered, but it's in a way that does narratively make sense. If this record's message is about self-discovery, Roan's actively piecing together who she is as an artist as the record goes on. It's really corny, life-affirming pop music that I think millennial gays that pine for maximalism should really listen to, but it's infused with an ear for TikTok potential and the more modern Gen Z sensibilities. It was written mostly by Roan and Nigro, but there are a few other writers on here like Justin Tranter and Skylar Stonestreet who have made hits that we all know. It clocks at 14 tracks and 49 minutes, which makes it a pretty breezy listen. It opens with Phenomenon, which opens the saga painting someone who's just not satisfied with fitting into the scripted heteronormative life while looking for more in the verses. I have to say that the pre-chorus is really insane and it builds into this jarring chorus. Roan tips off that she's not interested in perfect phrasing, but rather what sounds intuitive and interesting. Get it hot like Papa John is a very inelegant lyric, but the sentiment and the way that she slots it in really makes it work perfect. Roan somehow manages to make it work for me, which really passes a litmus test for whether or not you should listen to this record. If this song does not vibe with you, turn it off, because it is pretty maximalist. Red Water Midnight continues her self-discovery story. The verses talk about her parents' role in her perception as she succumbs to the nightlife. I find that the chorus has a cool intonation and delivery. The production reminded me a little bit of Paramore's After Laughter from 2017. I think Roan's strength is melody. She has an ear for making what feels dense float on the beat. There's a little clutter to it, but it works. Nigro's maximalist production on here feels very different from his more controlled, cohesive sound on Olivia Rodrigo's work. Again, it's really those ad-libs where Roan's personality comes in. The faint belting on the final chorus does make the song work for me. Coffee is a sharp detour into ballad territory. Roan's strongest when she's going for weird. The writing here is pretty solid and confessional enough to get some emotion out of it. The subject's pretty simple. It's about how she can only meet her ex for coffee or she'll end up making another mistake. The strings on this feel very much like those on Lacey from Guts, which is funny because she did provide backing vocals for that track. Still, this is one of the weaker tracks. It's a pretty solid demo for when she's restrained. Casual's another mid-tempo song, but I do think that it's stronger than Coffee. The production is more synthy and kinetic. It allows her cutting lyrics to hit a bit harder. The casual nature of her talking about the rumors, how she was just a girl her ex was banging on the couch. The chorus really does a good job of selling the contrast of how her ex would just eat her out, and then talking about how the ex's mom would invite her to her house. That really sparks some silent rage that's building. It's really the bridge that allows her to showcase her vocals, but the outro, that's really where the song cuts me the most. I hate I let this drag this on so you can go to hell is a really real sentiment. Super graphic ultra modern girl takes us back to a more dynamic Roan. This track has major Barbie energy, which makes sense because she was trying to get this on the soundtrack. It's kind of a PG-13 Disney Channel self-empowerment song about a girl who's comfortable in her own skin and in charge. You can really hear who she's paying tribute to. There's some classic diva sounds in there. It evokes Donna Summer at some points, Beyonce, Madonna, Gaga. Hot to Go is a track that I'm shocked did not blow up last year. I think of all the singles, this is the one that's just perfectly crafted to be a trendy sound. It even has a cute dance. The chorus itself is an earworm that's cheerleader pop perfection. The verses and intonation reminded me of early Cyndi Lauper. The gusto that she sings with, she knows she's hot to go. It's campy, uncouth, yet calculatedly catchy. Perfect summer pop. My Kink is Karma is another song I'm shocked didn't really click. The production's a bit more chill, but the song is pretty well calibrated. The subject matter about her ex having the worst time ever is peak relatable. This is likely about her very real ex who kicked her out and left her for dead at her lowest. The pre-chorus itself is a really solid escalation that works just as well as the chorus. The detachment that she summons in her delivery, yet remaining still vocally interesting, is a really cool element. There is no rhyme to it if you really listen, but you just don't care because you're drawn in by the emotion. People say I'm jealous, but My Kink is Karma is an Instagram caption-worthy petty lyric. Picture You is a song about imagining being with someone in a very crass way. The song is really composed and sung in a classy way. She mimics the nature of ebbing and flowing, if you catch my drift. The pre-chorus and the way that she draws it out has a double meaning to it, and the bridge is really ethereal. I think Roan's vocals, again, make this unwieldy album work at its best. Kaleidoscope is yet another ballad that's well written and well performed, but its track placement does take me out of the moment. Lyrically, it's this very devastating ballad about crossing the boundary and making a lover out of a friend. The metaphor is beautiful and cutting, but it really feels out of place. Narratively, it fits her journey, but coming after the Euphoria Picture You, it's kind of a bummer. Speaking of track placements, the next 3 tracks came from her earlier career and felt almost tacked on like bonus tracks. They still supplement the overall story, but rather than being orphaned, they're added back onto the record, probably to symbolize growth. Though if I were doing the track listing, I probably would have left them off or named them bonus tracks. I adore Pink Pony Club. It is one of her earlier tracks. Narratively, it feels like a rebirth moment for her. She's fully embraced her queerness and the drag culture that she's been dreaming of. She's finally taking part in it, and she's losing her mind at the Pink Pony Club in WeHo, surrounded by her fellow gays. She paints the euphoria of leaving behind her past, but on the bridge, she also hasn't forgotten her roots. I feel like the production on here by Nigro is really dynamic, but it does sound a little bit dated compared to the other tracks. Naked in Manhattan, contextualized in the album, almost feels like a bonus track just because of how far she's come sonically. Again, her newer sound feels very maximalist, and this track feels almost minimalistic. but it does slot into her story about yearning and going after what she wants. I think it fits into the coming-of-age nature of the record. The verses do a great job of painting her object of desire. The second verse name-dropping Mean Girls and Lana, and the way that she can explore herself in this love makes it a really cute track. California actually really caught me because it speaks to the struggles of making it in California. The pre-chorus, if it hasn't happened yet, then maybe you should go, is really a thing people say. The chorus admits that she misses the seasons and the dying town that she's from, and that she's felt like she's let the people down. Ironically, the song did happen to her because she did end up having to return home for a while, but she clawed her way back. The closer, Guilty Pleasure, almost feels anticlimactic. This track is an ode to a guilty pleasure that's probably not good for her. She compares this relationship to a cigarette addiction that's more bad than good. I think the production's pretty solid, but it doesn't feel like a proper epilogue to the story she set up, but maybe that's the point that she's making. She's still in the journey. The record's definitely an 8 out of 10 for me. It is a bit uneven. There are a few skips here and there, but it is a very solid first record. Though I do think Good Luck Babe, which is probably for the second record, I think it's a better closer. I mean, lyrically, the song is the opposite of Phenomenon in that the verses call out the subject for not being happy with the compet life that they're settling for, rather than being from the first person. She's telling her ex good luck with all that. I think the confidence and the cleaner mixing speak to Roan's evolution and growth in just a year. I can see why it's a breakout hit, because it does have the proper elements of this album, but it is a bit more polished. I personally do think that Roan is on her way to proper stardom. I think she has the theatricality to stand out in today's marketplace. She'd been mostly ignored because she didn't have the platform, but by touring with Rodrigo and stunning at Coachella and building a streaming presence, she's well on her way to a sophomore record that I think is gonna blow up. Keep your eyes on her. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. This one's just kind of a quick throwaway video. I'm also gonna do one on Sabrina. Now that album bombs are kind of out of the way, I get space to really talk about artists that I didn't have the time to talk about last year, and also re-examine some projects that I feel deserve their own videos. I want to give a shout out to my members. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. A quick shout out to my subscribers. Without you guys, I don't have anyone to make videos for. I'm still a little bit under the weather, so if I sound a bit off, it's probably that. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. Comment below what your favorite Chappell Roan song is. I really make an effort to interact with every comment. Thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait to see you next video.